Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here today, and I most of all want to thank my colleagues who are here with me. I want to thank Senators Graham and Wicker, Senator Collins, Senator Chambliss, and Senator Isaacson, and I know that there are others who have also co-sponsored this legislation that we're going to talk about and the amendment. We're here today because we've filed a bill that addresses the recent cuts to the cost of living increases for our military retirees, including our wounded warriors, and provides a pay-for to fix that for those who have sacrificed so much for our nation. And some of us have supported the budget and some of us didn't because of this issue, but we are unified in wanting to fix this for our men and women in uniform and believe that we can do that with the bill that we have filed by fixing fraud within our tax code. Essentially, what we have is a situation where the additional child tax credit is being claimed, and without having to put a Social Security number down, the Treasury IG looked at this issue and found, and it's been investigated by other groups, and found, frankly, fraud, where we have people who are, the Treasury Department IG found that individuals who were not authorized to work in the United States received $4.2 billion by claiming the additional child tax credit, which is a refundable credit. And so this is really a situation of common sense, where, frankly, we can fix the budget for those who have served our country and have taken the bullets on our behalf. But not only that, this has been filed on the unemployment insurance extension. The Joint Tax Committee has estimated we can save close to $20 billion over 10 years by fixing this fraud in our tax code. And so in addition to fixing the military retiree issue, we can also pay for the unemployment insurance 3-month extension that's on the floor right now and return money to reduce the deficit. So it's a three-for to fix what should be fixed regardless. That's fraud within what's happening right now. And just some of the examples of this, according to a 2012 news report, an undocumented worker in Indiana admitted that his address was used to file tax returns by 4 other undocumented workers who fraudulently claimed 20 children in total, resulting in tax refunds totaling nearly $30,000. That same news report found that many undocumented workers are claiming the tax credit for children who do not even live in our country, and there's questions of whether some of these children even exist. In another incident in May of 2012 in North Carolina, investigators uncovered more than 1,000 tax returns linked to 8 addresses with refunds of more than $5 million. Investigators in Charlotte discovered that one address had 236 returns, with it worth more than $1.1 million in refunds. This is fraud. It should be stopped, and we should make this change. It's good government, and we can do so while serving our men and women in uniform, helping those who are struggling to find work, and also reducing our deficit. So this is our common sense amendment. I would hope that we will get a vote on this amendment on the uninsurance extension, because it does what all of us, the unemployment extension, what all of us, I think what the Democrats have said that they hope to do, and it also fixes something that should be fixed. And I can't imagine that we wouldn't get a vote on this. We're calling on the majority leader to provide us a vote on this common sense amendment, and I hope that we can get this supported and voted for. I also wanted to add that I'm very encouraged that the chairman of the Budget Committee, Patty Murray, has recently told the Navy Times that she would welcome a repeal of all the cuts to the military retirement, to their cost of living increases, if lawmakers could find a way to replace the estimated $6 billion pay for of the rollback to the COLAs to our men and women in uniform, the military retirees under the age of 62. Well, here's the good news. I would say to Chairman Murray, we have a proposal that not only does that, but pays for the unemployment insurance extension and helps the deficit situation. So I would call on my colleagues across the other side of the aisle. Let's vote on this. Let's solve this. Let's move forward with a common sense proposal. And with that, I would like to call on my colleague, Senator Roger Wicker.
Thank you, Kelly. And let me congratulate Senator Ayotte for her excellent leadership. She was on the floor in the late hours of the evening last night advocating this and making her voice heard. If the majority leader will give us a vote on the Ayotte amendment, that amendment will be passed overwhelmingly. So why would the majority leader not do this? I would just ask that. I think a lot of people out in the countryside don't realize there's one person on the face of the earth who can schedule a vote in the United States Senate, and that is Harry Reid, the majority leader. So we are here advocating for good government and asking the majority leader to bring this bill up. Now, let me say, we have people here who opposed the budget resolution, as did I, because it had the military, the cutback on the military COLA in it. We have other people of good faith who felt that they should vote for the budget amendment and were persuaded for whatever reason that it needed to be done and it needed to be done as it was written, or we would be in a bad situation. Reasonable minds could disagree and did disagree on that. I acknowledge that my colleagues that voted for the budget resolution were put in a difficult position. But we are all here united today. Some who voted for, some who voted against, we're united to say it is unfair to make a promise to our military people, have them fulfill every part of their obligation, and then after they've done their half of the deal, say, no, Uncle Sam is not going to keep its promise. That's what we're saying today. The amendment is good government, it's fairness, it's keeping a promise. The pay for is good government, and hardly anybody can disagree with that. So we're just asking for reason to prevail in this situation. Nothing is risked. The budget has gone forward. There will be no shutdown. So what is the risk of letting the Senate work its will and pass this overwhelmingly, as I'm sure we will do if we're given a chance by the majority leader?
I would like to call on my colleague, Senator Graham.
I want to remind folks what we're trying to accomplish here. The budget did pass. I agree with everything Roger said about needing to get something done, but viewing the $6 billion plus coming from the military retiree community is, quite frankly, I think unjust. Count me in for reforming retirement. Count me in for reforming TRICARE. There's a commission working as we speak that's supposed to report back to the Congress about how to make military pay and pension benefits more sustainable and affordable. In that commission, in the charter of the commission the Congress created, we said grandfather current retirees. So that's the construct from which I approach this issue. There have been a lot of editorials written about this being a minor deal. All I can say is that if you're 42 and you retire in 2016, by the time you get to be 62, this COLA minus 1%, if it's at a 2% COLA increase to keep your retirement benefits from being eaten away by inflation, is a $72,000 hit for you if you're an E7. If you're an 05, it's $109,000. If you retire after 20 years of service as an E7, your retirement pay is about $25,000. Now, if you've got a family, you're going to get another job because it's hard to raise family on $25,000. The point we're making is that we've made a deal with our military members that when you retire, you can expect certain things. This legislation basically negated that deal. This is not reform. The COLA for the military is calculated just like Social Security. No other group in the nation had to contribute in terms of reducing their retirement pay retroactively, other than the military. Taking the COLA minus 1% was a penalty for the military. It was not reform. So I am very pleased that the entire body is made a promise, almost the entire body, to our men and women in uniform who are going to retire, that we're going to fix this. Now, Senator Reid said that there's no low-hanging fruit left. I don't know what tree he is looking at in terms of the federal government. If you don't like Senator Ayotte's proposal, and why you wouldn't like it, I do not know. If you're okay with continuing this practice, then you have certainly lost your way. But if you don't like that, there's another idea our colleagues have. Senator Coburn, he says there's $27 billion over the next decade being allocated as follows, that people who are disabled are also receiving unemployment. How can you get both? How can you be disabled and get a check? The only way you can get a check if you're disabled is you're unable to work. There are people who are claiming to be disabled who also get unemployment because they can't find a job because they're able to work. Only in America. Probably not. But $27 billion through that program. So don't tell me there's no way we can pay for unemployment benefit extensions of 90 days. There's no low-hanging fruit left. Senator Ayotte is found in abuse of the tax code. Senator Coburn is found in abuse of the disability unemployment system. To my Democratic colleagues, embrace fixing this problem. To Senator Reid, there's plenty of low-hanging fruit. The question is, do you want to pay for extending unemployment benefits? I will vote for the extension if you will pay for it. If you want to fix the inequity toward our military retirement community, this is your chance. So I want to congratulate everybody who's come together to marry up two opportunities, to help the unemployed and also to right a wrong.
I would like to thank and bring forward my colleague, Senator Collins. Thank you.
Thank you. First, let me start by thanking Senator Ayotte for coming up with this very worthwhile proposal, which will accomplish three goals. First, for our military retirees, it will remove an unfair provision of the Budget Act that singled them out for cuts and them alone in their retirement system. I simply don't think that it's fair to military retirees to change the rules retroactively, to change the rules in the middle of the game. Second, the bill would allow us to pay for the 3-month extension in unemployment benefits, benefits that are still very important to long-term unemployed individuals in Maine and other states. This 3-month period would give us time to revamp the unemployment compensation program. In my judgment, if you're receiving uninsurance compensation for more than a year, your continued eligibility should be linked to participation in a job training program. If you're unemployed for more than a year, then most likely, sadly, the job that you once had is not coming back. We need to better match the needs of employers with the skills, training, and education of our workforce. Third, Senator Ayotte's bill takes aim at a provision that has been identified repeatedly by the Inspector General as being fraught with fraud, and that is the refundable child credit. I would point out that this credit is available not just to very low-income individuals. A couple can earn $75,000 and still qualify for this credit. And yet we know from repeated reports that it is being claimed illegally. This bill makes common sense. All three of the provisions are worthwhile, and linking them together is the right thing to do. I would join my colleagues in asking the Senate Majority Leader to open up this bill, which I voted to proceed to, and allow us to offer amendments to improve it. The Ayotte amendment is an excellent one that I am proud to support, but there are other ideas for offsetting the cost as well. Senator Coburn's idea, which you've just heard explained, and there are ideas on the Democratic side of the aisle. So let's have a free and open amendment process. If we do that, at the end of the day, I believe we can pass a bill that will help unemployed Americans, that will reduce fraud and abuse in an important program, and that will help our military retirees by keeping our promise to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Collins. I would like Senator Chambliss to come forward, and he himself had introduced a bill to address the unfair cuts to our military retirees, and I'm very proud that he's also supporting this proposal.
Well, thanks very much, Kelly, and thanks for your leadership on this. It's been critical and obviously very important. I'm one of those who voted for the budget bill, but at the time we voted for it, Senator Isaacson and I had a colloquy with Senator Murray on the floor of the Senate relative to this issue, and we said at that time, and she agreed, that this issue needed to be fixed. It was one of those unintended consequences in a budget deal that was, in my opinion, the right way to go. Now, why do we need to fix it? Well, here's why. There are actually two parts to this, this COLA issue. One, impacts the veterans who are disabled, and it impacts them to the tune of about $600 million. That's going to be fixed. It's going to be fixed in the short term in the appropriation process, whether they're separate bills or whether there's an omnibus bill. The other part of it, the second part of it, is the long-term impact on our veterans and the reduction in their annual COLA increase. My state is a huge military state. We have an awful lot of retired military individuals in my state. They're going to be impacted in a huge way, which means the economy of my state will be impacted in a huge way. At the same time, if we go to our men and women in uniform and we say, okay, guys, ladies, we've got a debt and a deficit problem. We're going to ask you to pay your fair share in the process with everybody else in the country to help fix this problem. I have no doubt but what all of our military men and women would stand up just as they did when they were sworn into their respective branch of the military, and they would say, you bet, we're going to help America. But unfortunately, what happened in this bill is we single out our military retirees. We didn't ask our federal retirees to pay the same fair share that our military retirees are paying. We didn't address other parts of our military retirement program that need to be reviewed and frankly are being reviewed right now. And there may be changes that we'll come back with down the road, but it's just not fair to single those men and women out who put their life in harm's way to protect America and protect Americans with a reduction in their quota in this bill. We can fix it. We can fix it in the right way. Senator Ayotte has come up with a great pay-for that's an all-American pay-for. And it's one that needs to be enacted in this bill in the short term and not delay it until 2014 or 2015 when this provision takes effect. I commend her for coming up with this idea, and I look forward to a debate on the floor and the passage of this amendment.
And we're very glad to have all of the state of Georgia here in terms of their senatorial representation, and I would like to introduce my colleague, Senator Isaacson.
Well, I'll do what I always do when I file a Saxby. I'll just say me too. Do read the congressional record the day of the vote on the budget. I voted for the budget. We entered into a colloquy on the floor with Patty Murray from Washington, who was the principal Senate negotiator on the budget deal. She acknowledged clearly, and you ought to quote from that thing, the absolute commitment to fix this in terms of the disabled veterans and the commitment to help find the money necessary to fix it for all veterans. Kelly Ayotte deserves tremendous credit. She found a most needed reform that needs to take place that generates the money to pay for unemployment insurance compensation for the additional 3 months, as well as fix the military retiree problem, as well as contribute $7 billion, isn't that right, Kelly, to deficit reduction. You know, there's only one reason that the majority leader would not let this amendment go to the floor, and that's if he wants a problem rather than a solution. Because what Senator Ayotte has introduced, and I've been proud to co-sponsor, is a solution to 3 major problems that all the Congress should be addressing. I hope that the majority leader will let this amendment come forward and solve 3 problems with 1 amendment.
Thank you. I would like to introduce my colleague from Ohio, Senator Portman, who I'm glad is very glad is supporting this proposal and also has introduced his own proposal to pay for the unemployment insurance extension.
Thanks to my colleague from New Hampshire for her leadership on this, and she's come up with a great proposal. You've heard about it today. This is a way for us to deal with the issue of unemployment insurance extension, to be sure that we aren't adding to the deficit, which would be exactly the wrong thing to do because the record levels of debt and deficit is hurting our economy today. Why would you want to add to it? So we should pay for unemployment insurance if we extend it. We should also reform it, and this gives us time to do that, as Senator Collins has said. Second, it does add to deficit reduction overall because there's net deficit reduction in her proposal. And then finally, it deals with a problem in the budget agreement. I did support the budget agreement. I thought it was the right thing to do. That's been referenced today. One thing that hasn't been referenced is the fact that not only did the budget agreement ensure we weren't going to have a government shutdown, and possibly 2 this year, but it also provided critical sequester relief for our military, something that all of us have heard a lot about and many of us have talked about. And that sequester relief is about readiness and preparedness, and it's about our troops. So that was important. Finally got Congress back to the business of appropriating, which is our constitutional duty, prioritizing spending and being able to provide the oversight to look into waste, fraud, and abuse. But it was not perfect, and I said that at the time, and I voted for it with the understanding that the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, the chairman of the Budget Committee, and other Democrats were willing to work with us to resolve this issue on military pay. I don't think it's fair because I think folks were singled out, and I think it's an issue that needs to be addressed in a much more comprehensive way. There is right now a commission that's been formed that will report later this year, we're told, that is doing this pay benefit review in a comprehensive and transparent way. That's certainly appropriate. I also think that members of our military who have sacrificed so much should not be singled out when we aren't comprehensively dealing with the deficit issue. And we didn't in the budget agreement. Yes, it had some net deficit reduction. Yes, it did not raise taxes. There are some good things about it, but it didn't deal with the underlying problem that we face as a country. When we do that, I agree with Senator Saxby-Chambliss, who just said people will step up and be counted, but as part of a comprehensive solution. So I applaud Senator Ayotte for preparing what is a sensible amendment. As she noted, I do have an amendment that deals just with the unemployment compensation, unemployment insurance issue as well. It pays for it, again, with the understanding that we shouldn't be adding to the deficit, and in fact what we should be doing is reforming the program so that we can deal with a real problem we've got in this country, that under this administration, under the policies that the Obama administration has put forward, under the policies that Democrats in Congress have supported, we have historic levels of long-term unemployed. It's a problem in Ohio. It's a problem around the country. We need to address it. And by just a Band-Aid approach of extending existing unemployment insurance, we're not going to do that. So let's pay for it. This amendment does that. Let's deal with the issue of our veterans who have served so well and should not be singled out. And let's have a little net deficit reduction. It's a good package. I hope that those of us who voted to proceed to the unemployment insurance extension legislation will actually have our good faith in the process restored, because we did so with the understanding that there would be a debate. We were told that Republicans ought not to block the actual discussion of whether there should be an extension or not, and whether it should be paid for or not, and whether there should be reforms or not. Well, now we have the opportunity this week to do this. We've got plenty of time. We've got all week set aside for this, I understand. Let's be sure that today I think at 5 o'clock today, something like that, when we're done with this post-cloture period, that the majority leader and those on the other side of the aisle who would like to resolve this issue allow us to have this debate. That's what the Senate's traditional role has been. So this amendment certainly is one I strongly support. There are others I'm going to support. Let's have this debate, and let's ensure that we can help resolve all three of these issues.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Senator John Hoeven from North Dakota.
Thank you, Senator Yant. Pleased to be here with my colleagues on this very important issue. You know, when we voted on the budget, there are any number of things that people didn't agree on, but there was a concerted effort to get a bipartisan vote to pass the budget. One of the things that we talked about addressing, and where there was agreement on both sides of the aisle, was this issue with the cost of living adjustment for our military retired. You know, whether you talk to Republicans or Democrats, whether you talk to people that were in senior positions on the Budget Committee or in senior positions on the Armed Services Committee, there was a commitment to solve this, address it, and fix this. So here we are today with a very, very viable, good offset to pay for not only adjusting or fixing the COLA issue that was in the budget, but also unemployment benefits, meaning we pay for them if we're going to extend beyond the standard 26 weeks. It's important for people to realize that we provide 26 weeks. We're talking about emergency assistance beyond that 26 weeks. And what we're saying is with the deficit and the debt, that's got to be paid for. So in both cases, we're putting forth a very common sense solution. If you think about it, enforcing the additional child tax credit is making sure we follow the law. We all swore an oath to uphold the law. So let's do it. Let's make sure that if somebody's going to apply for that additional child tax credit, that they're providing a Social Security number. That's the law. Let's enforce it. And let's make sure that we do exactly what people on the floor, and you know, I encourage all of you, ask some of the folks that when we were working on the budget, you talked to them then about this COLA issue. And there was a commitment across the board, both sides of the aisle, to fix this. So we're putting forward a very good pay for, and I think that we need to see others coming forward and joining us. If not this, or if it needs some modification, let's have that dialogue. And I hope you're asking everybody that question.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. Questions?
Senator,
Yes.
Senator Collins and you and Senator Portman, the three of you standing here could insist that Harry Reid allow votes for offsets. And I wonder if the three of you would tell him that you will not absolutely vote to end debate unless there are offsets for the UI bill.
You know, I've already said that I will not vote to end debate without offsets. And, you know, I think what's telling about this is that we've introduced a common sense proposal for an offset. Senator Portman has a proposal for an offset. Others are introducing proposals for an offset. And so I think that's where I stand on it, and certainly speaking for myself here.
Yeah, let me just, I'm not speaking for Senator Collins, but I'll speak for myself and say that we've been very clear about that. And I gave a talk on the floor yesterday about this, Ted, and I think it's important that we get the Senate back to the business of debate and discussion. And one of the amendments I will be offering deals specifically with the unemployment insurance extension issue, in addition to the amendment I'm strongly supporting from Senator Ayotte, and it has to do with unemployment itself, being sure that improper payments are dealt with. This is in the President's budget. The other pay for that I have has to do with double dipping, called concurrent receipts, where you can't receive Social Security, disability, and unemployment insurance and TAA. That concept is in the President's budget. It doesn't include TAA, but it certainly is consistent with the President's budget. So the proposal, narrow proposal I have just for the unemployment insurance side, is out of the President's budget. It's something that in the past has been bipartisan. Let's have a discussion about it. Let's have a debate. And if I know that it's going to be paid for and that we're then going to engage in a process of reform, then I'd be able to support it. But if not, I won't be able to support cloture.
So if there's not an offset approved in advance, you will not vote to end debate on it?
That's correct. I will not be voting for cloture, and I've made that clear. It sounds like Senator Ayotte has as well. So, look, this is, frankly, I think a situation the Democrats had not expected. I think they were surprised that some of the Republicans stepped forward to provide cloture on the motion to proceed. I think they had hoped, frankly, some of them, from a political point of view, that they could, say that Republicans were obstructing. I think we kind of took them by surprise. And instead, we're saying, no, we absolutely don't want to obstruct. And by the way, my other colleagues don't either. They're just concerned that because the majority leader has consistently blocked amendments by filling the tree, that would happen again. They had no assurance that wouldn't happen, so they weren't able to support moving forward. Some of us, again, I said earlier, in good faith, said, okay, some Democrats are saying that they're willing to look at this. I think Senator Schumer has indicated that he could look at some pay-fors, for instance, a member of leadership. I know other Democrats are working with us right now on my amendment and other amendments. So we took them at their word. Let's see if they keep their word.
Senator Ayotte and Senator Portman, I was wondering if either of your amendments have any Democratic co-sponsors.
Not yet, no.
But we're working with Democrats.
Absolutely hope to have some co-sponsorship.
With leadership about to take this beyond the Republican office?
I've certainly have had some discussions with members on the other side of the aisle, but I don't have any co-sponsorships yet. Here's my thought. I can't understand why I wouldn't be able to get a vote on this amendment. So, like Senator Portman, like Senator Collins, I voted to proceed to this bill in good faith. And it seems to me that why wouldn't you want to allow a vote on this? If you want to vote against it, fine. But I think it makes a lot of sense. So I would hope I would get a vote on this.
Well, whatever happens, whether or not you can actually get votes on these pay-fors, whether or not any of them can be approved, this is only a 3-month patch. It's a program that there are obviously enough people on both sides of the aisle would like to see continued. What happens after this debate ends, if it's able to end, in terms of trying to negotiate a longer-term solution to this? And is that part of your conversation as you're haggling over this?
It's not part of my conversation. I certainly can't speak for everyone else. This is a short-term extension I'm willing to consider right now if it's paid for. But ultimately, what I'd like to see us do is work on concrete policies that create a better environment for private sector job creation. And I believe that there are a number of proposals that we can. Many of my colleagues around here, Senator Portman has a jobs bill. Senator Collins has an excellent bill to ensure that we don't undermine the 40-hour work week, for example, with the health care law. And so I think we have a lot of ideas that, rather than continuing to revisit this discussion, that we can actually get people back to work. And I hope that's where our focus is. But I speak for myself there.
As a principle,
Yeah, that's true.
Does that mean you don't believe that unemployment insurance should be a program that's continued in the long term? Do you think that there's...
I think right now before us we have a 3-month extension, which I've been very clear that if we find a responsible pay for, I am willing to support. But ultimately, our focus should be here on the many ideas that we have of improving private sector job creation by creating a better climate in the private sector to get people back to gainful employment.
I just want to comment on your question. I, for one, believe that the long-term unemployment comp program needs to be overhauled so that it is focused on giving people the training, the supports that they need to get back to work. And that may mean training them for a job in a field that is completely different from the field where they have traditionally worked. The problem with the unemployment comp extended benefits program right now is it does not prepare people for new jobs outside of the field in which they've been working. And if an individual has been unemployed for more than a year, then most likely the job that he or she once held is not going to come back. This is not like a plant that closes down for a couple of months, but then is going to recall all of the workers. It is more equivalent to a plant that is shut forever, and those workers are never going to have those kinds of jobs back again. I think we do a real disservice if we don't link the continued receipt of benefits after a year to new jobs for them. And the way to do that is to give them new training, education, whatever support and skills that they need in order to become reemployed. I have talked with the president as recently as yesterday morning about that idea. He was very receptive and is, in fact, sending staffers up to talk to me about developing some sort of program where we would link long-term unemployment benefits with a requirement for job training. And there are many other ideas. Rob has ideas in this area. Sherrod Brown has a bill called the Clusters Bill that is aimed at that mismatch between the jobs that exist and the skills that people don't have in order to get those jobs. I cannot travel throughout Maine without coming in touch with employers who are begging for workers but can't get workers for the jobs that they have because they lack the skills that they need. Machinists are examples in my state where there are jobs available but not enough people trained to be machinists. IT jobs are a whole nother category. And I think we have to refocus the program on giving people the skills so they can get back to work. That's what they want. They want to go back to work, not to continue receiving unemployment comp. And I was very encouraged by the president's response. Finally, let me just point out that there is a redo of the Workforce Investment Act that has been reported by the Help Committee. That is a bipartisan bill that Patty Murray and Johnny Isaacson have been working on, along with Lamar Alexander and Tom Harkin. I hope, and I'm going to encourage, that that bill be brought to the floor, and it could be a vehicle for the kind of reform I've talked about.
You know, let's put this in context. Is this a serious effort to extend unemployment benefits if we don't find a pay for and we don't get into reforms? Because how's this bill going to go through the House if we don't do those things?
Thank you very much.